Welcome to ITI's podcast. We call it Download on Tech. ITI is the global trade association of the technology industry, representing the world's technology innovators. When you listen to episodes of Download on Tech, you'll hear from leaders at the most innovative technology companies, from policymakers, and from influencers from around the world. Our guests share their perspective on the intersection of innovation and public policy. Today, we're thrilled to welcome Monica Batchelder, who is Chief Sustainability Officer at Hewlett Packard Enterprise, otherwise known as HPE. Monica leads a global team focused on driving sustainability and solving social and environmental challenges. Under her guidance, HPE has been at the forefront of integrating environmental, social, and governance principles into its business strategy, while championing transparency and innovation in sustainability practices. Before joining HPE, Monica worked with multinational corporations and NGOs on sustainable business strategies, giving her a global perspective on driving impact through collaboration and innovation. Monica, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Jason.
Thrilled to have you here today on this beautiful day. A great day to talk about innovation and technology. Well, every day is a great day to talk about innovation and technology, but particularly happy to be doing it here with you today. Now, HPE is a well-known company, a well-known brand that obviously is at the forefront of innovation in a variety of areas. We can't talk about AI without talking about HPE, for example. But you're also a leader in driving sustainability as part of this innovation pathway that HPE has been on. And you're driving sustainability in particular within the tech industry. So I want to ask you to start off by sharing with us how HPE is utilizing tech innovation to optimize resource use, which is so important in the area of AI, to reduce carbon footprints, to promote energy efficiency in your own operations, as you do in others. In other words, talk to us about HPE's approach to utilizing technology to create sustainable tech innovation.
Yeah, absolutely, Jason. I think you're kicking us off with two of the hottest topics of today, right? Sustainability and AI. And there's tons of different applications for AI and tech to actually advance sustainability goals. But the first thing I always like to emphasize is that the lowest impact of AI is the AI you never use. So it's really critical that we be discerning about when AI is the right solution for the job, because every use has a financial and an environmental cost. But that said, I mentioned there's enormous opportunities to apply AI in ways that have positive social and environmental impact. And like many, HPE is applying AI solutions to improve efficiencies across our entire value chain. But the uses of AI and technology that excite me the most are actually AI for AI. So it's how do we use AI to actually reduce the environmental impact of IT itself for the end users, for our customers. And that's exciting to me for two reasons. One, the vast majority of HPE and most of the tech industry's actual emissions is from the use of our products. And then secondly, because we actually know that things like power and space and cooling, those sort of environmental factors, are actually what are the constraints to AI being able to scale and really reach its true potential to solve business challenges. So at HPE, we've been thinking about that for some time. How can we use AI to help our own technologists and our customers really access data and insights on things like carbon emissions and electricity use of IT? Because again, one of the challenges I think others can relate to is that often engineers and IT managers, they have access to data on things like performance, on things like cost, but they don't have that same information to evaluate trade-offs around environmental impacts, right? So just one quick example, I'll leave it at that, is our technologists developed an internal AI-powered chatbot and a tool internally that's taking design for sustainability to the next level. So design for sustainability isn't new. It's something we've talked about for a long time. HPE's program dates back to the 90s. But what we can actually do now with AI is actually translate those strategies into actionable design recommendations. So our engineers and even our customers can actually understand the trade-offs, again, the environmental impact of designing and using IT and AI, And there's really sort of relatively simple applications of AI in that sense that are going to be pretty transformational just in terms of getting the data and recommendations to use AI better.
I love the idea of using AI to make AI better. It's very meta, but it also makes a lot of sense because you're using technology innovation to advance technology innovations. And I also love the way in which you've described HPE kind of leaning in on these questions of efficiency and environmental footprint. Because you often hear industries that kind of throw up their hands and say, well, it's not our fault. You know, our customers are using all these products and they're creating demands on the grid. So I want to ask you a little bit more about this and how HPE is responding to this, because AI uses a lot of power and servers require a lot of cooling, and the success of AI is also creating a lot of demand for this utility use and raising a lot of questions about how the industry is thinking about these issues. So let's talk about next steps and how HPE and the tech industry as a whole are really thinking about how we can accelerate these climate efforts.
Yeah. So if you have opened a newspaper or a digital newspaper, I should say, these days, energy use of technology, especially with the explosion of AI, is making headlines all over the world. For a bit of context, the predictions vary on, how much of that is fear mongering and how much of that is real. But the IEA projected that in a worst case scenario, from 2022 to 2026, data center energy usage could double. So that means that by 2026, next year, data centers could use as much electricity as the entire country of Japan. So to meet the power and cooling demands of technology and move towards a net zero economy concurrently, and most large tech companies have these net zero targets that we're still driving towards, as an industry, we really need to prioritize both more efficient and sustainable IT, and then using that IT to help drive innovation and catalyze innovation in other ways that will help advance climate. So, just as an example on the innovation side, I tend to hear the conversation begin with the challenge of sourcing more energy. And so I always have to pause people and say, first, we need to optimize the underlying infrastructure and drive the most efficiency possible at the solution and system level. And then secondly, we need to use those highly efficient systems. And by the way, HPE had 4 of the top 10 most energy efficient supercomputers on the Green 500 last year. But we need to be using those systems to catalyze those breakthroughs. So everything from clean energy sources to how we improve climate modeling and weather predictions in order to tackle both the mitigation and adaptation of climate change. One cool thing that we've been doing that I know is aligned to an area ITI is looking at is that interplay between data centers and the grid, right? So our researchers at Hewlett Packard Labs have partnered with the Department of Energy, where we can actually use digital twin technology to understand demand signals, availability of clean energy, and actually reduce or move workloads based on those signals and different factors. So the way I kind of sum this up is, first, we need to reduce, let's say, the 2 to 4% of greenhouse gas emissions from IT. And then we need to use IT to tackle the other, say, 96% of global emissions through those innovations that can transform entire sectors.
Makes good sense. And I've actually seen those HPE supercomputers out in the world, and they're pretty impressive devices. They're huge, they're massive, but there's a reason that the federal government, and particularly the national labs, choose to partner with HPE, because you do it right. And those supercomputers are doing some pretty important things. That partnership between the public and private sector generating some amazing innovations. And speaking of innovation, so we've talked about AI, we've talked about supercomputers. I want to go beyond that and talk about climate impact issues, even beyond those categories. So share with us some of the exciting innovations and technology that you're seeing in the tech industry that help mitigate climate impact even beyond AI, as we've been talking about.
Yeah, I think there's a ton of ways I can answer that, but just given we're just talking about these massive supercomputers and this stuff coming out of the labs, I always like to sort of remind people that when we talk about exciting innovations, we're jumping to like the potential of these nascent technologies like nuclear fusion, like they're going to be the silver bullet to all of our problems and solve sustainability. But there are actually a lot of exciting developments happening right now, both on innovations in actual technology and in sort of the climate tech startup space. that are going to be needed to reach the full potential of AI or to grow technology. And so we can't just be banking on those things in the future. We need to get excited about what's happening right now. And I am. There's a ton of cool stuff going on. So on the infrastructure side, I think there's a lot of innovations around edge computing, with applications on the factory floor, vehicles. I mentioned real-time monitoring of weather events. That'll make sort of a tremendous difference in being able to have more instant autonomous decision-making, more efficiencies. And then on the climate tech side, I think some of the more interesting things aren't necessarily, I don't want to dive into specific solutions. There's a ton. I think the models that are bringing some of those climate tech solutions to market are actually what's most interesting to me. So one example is one of our key strategic partners is LabStart. And their business model is they actually take IP from the largest research labs in the country, and they pair that with entrepreneurs that can take it from lab to market into commercialized solutions. And so it's those really practical models that are actually sort of taking things into real world applications that we can't lose sight of right now and have really incredible potential, in addition to the really exciting stuff that might be coming up next.
Very interesting. And there is a lot of potential there. And it's exciting to think about those innovations that are on the horizon. So I wanted to ask you, since obviously HPE and you and your team have devoted a lot of thought and time and energy and effort to these issues, I wanted to ask what advice you might give to another tech industry company that's looking to engage in these kind of activities. Because obviously the message underlying all of this, because ITI is a policy shop and HPE is very engaged in the global policy scene, the underlying message is that the industry is endeavoring to do the right thing. Governments have an interest in industry advancing private sector innovation. And, none of us want to live in a world where it's all regulations that are driven down on companies and a regulatory environment that's perhaps backwards looking and freezing in time old technology. We want the private sector to do it. We want innovation to be the solution. We don't want governments to have to do it for us. And so all of what you're talking about here helps deliver that message that the private sector takes these issues seriously and has got it. So share with us your advice for other tech companies that are looking to kind of make sustainability a core part of operations and leverage the technology that we've been talking about to deliver that message to government that the private sector takes these things seriously, that we can leverage AI and other technologies for sustainability as part of the operations of the tech industry. What's your advice for other companies?
Yeah. So, building off what you said, I think the first thing that goes without saying, but let's say it, is the sustainability space is an area where we can work pretty competitively to some extent. And we need to collaborate with everyone in our value chain, our competitors, our shared supply chain, policymakers, utilities, whoever it is. And I think we need to advance the dialogue from sort of the fear mongering, honestly, that I'm hearing today, especially around AI's environmental and social impacts, to actual solutioning and to continuing to expand responsible technology as an industry. The second thing is I've talked about, getting data into the hands of the right people. Again, we need better data to inform better decision making. And as an organization, as a private company, getting that data into the hands of everyone, again, across your value chain and within your company is the best way to actually sort of affect change. And then the last thing I would say is AI is a game changer, and everyone has a responsibility to understand it at a basic level. So our CEO, Antonio Neri, he likes to say that everyone at HPE should be pursuing a minor in AI. And he doesn't mean that literally. What he means is that every one of his employees needs to explore the possibilities of that technology and ask themselves if the way they're doing things could be made more efficient or effective through the use of AI, and to implement it in a very considered manner. So that's the other thing I'd say is, AI is a tool and it will transform the game, and we need to be looking at how we can use it to drive sustainability.
I like that idea of everybody in the company, regardless of their area of focus, needs to have a minor in AI and make sure they're incorporating it in there. I like that a lot. Let's talk about AI's broader potential. We've talked about how exciting it is. It can do a lot for the technology industry. It can do a lot for our customers, but it can also do a lot of good generally. And HPE is focused on some critical impact areas that AI can be used for. And I look forward to hearing your thoughts on how AI is being used for good. So healthcare and life sciences is one of the areas, community resilience is another area, human rights is another area. How does HPE see artificial intelligence as a vehicle for advancing positive solutions in all of these areas and using the tools of AI to address a lot of these challenges in this area?
Yeah, so there's a lot to unpack. I think first, our purpose at HPE is to advance the way people live and work. So our whole company is really founded this idea that technology can drive transformational change for society for the better. And so I have the pleasure of overseeing both our corporate social impact programs and the HPE Foundation. So in addition to sort of the volunteering and grants and those typical philanthropic programs that you see driving these social impact areas, one of the things we're focused on as, a technology company is using data and technologies like AI to tackle the 3 impact areas that you just laid out. So for instance, we've stood up our own accelerator programs for startups and partnered with others, really to find sort of these nascent tech-driven startups and help to scale their technologies. And also we provide them mentoring. So in areas like cybersecurity, AI ethics, really help them navigate how to do the most with their technology in a responsible way. And just one area I want to highlight out of the 3 you mentioned is in human rights, the issue of modern slavery is actually a place that we think has really not been considered a lot in this conversation, and where there's actually massive potential to use data and technology to create change. So again, it's an issue that sort of flies under the radar, but you might be surprised that the number of people in modern slavery is actually increasing every year. Which is crazy in today's society. But we think, again, tools like AI and machine learning, we can help identify patterns of exploitation. We can process vast amounts of multilingual, unstructured data and spot trends and risks that otherwise would go undetected. And so that's one of our key focuses this year. And earlier this year at the World Economic Forum, HPE and the forum launched a new global data partnership, whereby we're looking to sort of collate and leverage data and create accountability to create systemic action in eradicating forced labor, because it is something that is in the supply chain of every single private company in the world. And if you say that you don't have forced labor in your supply chain, you're not looking hard enough. So we really encourage folks to get involved and sort of join us in this data sharing effort where we can try to use data and technology to solve that problem.
Very interesting, very important use of technology, and a very interesting use case for technology that reminds us there is a lot of good that can come from using these tools. Monica, it's been a great pleasure having you on the show today for a very interesting and enlightening conversation. Really appreciate your sharing all these great ideas around sustainability and transparency and the role of technology in addressing global challenges. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you, Jason. Always really excited to help share the future of technology and the role that it'll play in creating a sustainable world.
Our guest today has been Monica Batchelder, who is Chief Sustainability Officer at Hewlett Packard Enterprise. And thank you for joining us today for ITI's Download on Tech podcast. You can find future episodes of Download on Tech on our website, itic.org, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. I'm Jason Oxman, ITI's President and CEO, and I look forward to connecting with you next time.